Let's bring the audio into the situation here so we can get going. Do what? I bet that was a little cool experience, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, at least it's in the warmest part of the day. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to let you know that one important thing we want you to know is that we're glad you're here. You'll see. It worries me when you see signs like this. It worries me when we see signs like this one. Yeah. Always when we say we're glad you're here. Now, we'll backtrack for just a moment and you all tell me what you remember from last week. Roger backslid on us last Friday. Huh? Okay. That we did. Anything else you recall from last week? This bird has to be at Lois's house because she did the exact same thing when she went off the porch. Didn't she, Roger? Right over the bush and face right into the concrete. Oh, she went over, didn't she? Yeah, I forgot. So, first tonight, go ahead, Ginger. Tell me what she's going to say.
What the last enemy is destroyed.
The last enemy is going to be destroyed. What was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I just make sure you got it all. Because last week we said after an hour you've lost 50% of what you heard, you learned. And after 24 hours, 70% of it's gone. So that's why I just seen if you collected it. So tell me what this word, what does this word mean? Okay. Then it should be a short one. What does this word mean? The first question of the night.
Psalm 27:14.
Yeah, but what does the word mean?
What?
That's what we want to know is what does this word mean? Roger's thinking really hard. He's over there grinding gears, stripping them out.
Calmly wait.
To-
Not to wait.
Go ahead and say.
To calmly wait.
Okay.
Not to just wait.
Self-control.
Self-control. Any others? Oh, it got quiet. Now, can anybody tell me what this word means? This one will be the hard one. I know Roger over here knows this word. Either one, you can tell me. I don't know what that top one is. It's written in a whole other language. So we're going to look at these two words for just a moment before we study some things as we continue in the wilderness, because we're still in the wilderness tonight. And the first word I gave you is the word patience. Let me put that up there for us for just a moment first. Now, the very first thing the Bible dictionary gives me when I look up the word patience is the suffering of afflictions. That is just exactly what Ginger thought she was going to read tonight when she heard what the word patience meant. Pain, toil, calamities, provocation, or other evil, with a calm, unruffled temper, endurance without murmuring or fretfulness. And you can see all these different things that are resulted to the word patience tonight. But I always find it interesting because everybody says patience, and they sit there and think about it. And the very first thing that the Bible dictionary puts us on is the suffering of affliction. Now, the word quava came from the lexicon, the Hebrew language of the lexicon. in the Bible dictionary. And I want you to see, just in contrast, the Hebrew language word that went to the root meaning of wait or patience and waiting. And you see such a different angle in the Hebrew language of the Bible dictionary. I'll let you look at these for just a moment before we look at some things in study tonight. So, Lord's in the wilderness for how long? See, Roger remembered that from 2 weeks ago. He's doing real good. So, we spent this time in the wilderness. Now, last week we said that one of the things that I'm not going to say fail to do, but we don't emphasize as much on, is the resurrection day. And we talked about how that we only really modelly support celebrating that on Easter in the mind. That's what we physically see churches advertise as the resurrection on the Easter Sunday. And we're still in the wilderness tonight. We're still experiencing some things in this 40 days in the wilderness, and the same thing that we're in tonight. So the verse that you do have on your paper, I'll give it to us first in Psalms 27:14, where David said to wait on the Lord and be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Now, if you look at some things when we look at the Bible, and we're still in the wilderness, get in your mind that we're in the wilderness, and this is the verse that appears to us today. We're in the wilderness. All right? Few things about coming up to it. Now, this picture I'm going to show you is every one of us at some point in time. At some point in time, this is every one of us. I've decided that this is every one of us at some point in time, because we feel that we're going to die before whatever we're patiently waiting on is already gone. We're going to feel like the dead man standing. Now, all these things, and we're going to look at some things in just a moment, but I have a few questions to ask you tonight to get your mind thinking about where we're at in the wilderness. And you tell me if you've ever done this before. Are you ready, Ginger? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is let's just say you go to get on an elevator. You push the button, and the elevator still hasn't came to you. How many of you pushed the button again? And the one next to it? When I go up there to see Chris at U of L, there's, I don't know how many, there's what, 5, 6, 7 elevators right there? And there's only one button. And you don't know which one's going to open. And then worse is when you get in them, they've all got 2 doors. And I don't know which one I came in and which one I'm supposed to go out, because they both open every time. And so I have to kind of look at both ways to figure out which way I'm supposed to come in and out of this thing. But people wait on that elevator, and if it's not got there quick enough, the first thing they do is go up and push it again. Now it's already lit, so they know they pushed it once, right? They keep pushing it. Okay. All right, let's try another one. Let's try another one. How many in a traffic jam has started blowing the horn? Traffic's not moving, but they start blowing their horn. Anybody ever experienced this one? Okay. Well, you might have a reason then. All right. What about this one? Let's take this one. We're at Kroger, and Rick's in the back, and he don't know that the front end is just sinking, and every line is lined up. How many times have you stood in line and decided that it's not moving faster than the one beside you, so you switch lines? And then the one you were in, people are already going down by you. And you're thinking, if I would have stayed right there, I'd have done been out of here. But, yeah, 2 lanes. Yeah. So we done that one. All right. Now let's see if you've ever done this one. This one's another one, good one. How many have ever been put on hold and they tell you your wait time is whatever and your third caller in queue, and so many minutes later you decide it's not coming, so you hang the phone up, call right back, go right back to your spot, and now you're like 13 behind where you were at. You ever done that before? Been on hold? Wait on it? Okay. Okay. So, well, and that's another method. But a lot of people think that it's not working or it's stuck or something's wrong. Same as elevator, and they hang up, they call back, and they go back to the same place on the phone system, and they sit there on hold, and now they're waiting longer. Okay. I got one more I'm going to ask you about here. So, a couple of mindless things that you do when you wait for anything, no matter what you're waiting on. There's a couple things I wrote down that I thought about that people do when they're waiting, and I just observe people and watch this. The first thing they'll do is they'll tap their feet. Everybody can see anybody do that? Now let me give you the best one in the room, and every one of you should be able to do this. What does Greg Pendleton do? I knew that was coming. And what does he do is bouncing his leg, all right? People suck on their teeth when they're sitting there, or they'll do something with their teeth. They'll tap their feet, they'll pace back and forth. Some will hum or whistle or piddle with something in their pocket. You'll hear them rattle their change in their pocket. It's like it's growing or something because you'll hear them rattling the change. There you go. Pop chewing gum. All these things are done mindlessly. We ain't thinking about it, but we're doing it in an effort to be patient. We're padding our time of waiting, doing this stuff, trying to be better in our efforts of patience. But what does it really show? That we don't have patience. We're very impatient. Nothing to do with it. You can run in any direction you want. So when we get to this verse tonight, now we're in the wilderness. Put your mind there. We're in the wilderness, and David said to wait on the Lord. So in the middle of all of life's problems, despair, and whatever else the devil wants to try to throw at you, the first thing we've got the problem of is the first word is to wait. And everybody, I got to thinking about this. How many times do you hear people tell you to wait in a calm fashion? What do you normally hear? What do you normally hear? You how many times do you hear people say wait in a calm fashion is not the typical. What do you normally hear when someone's telling you to wait? What do you normally hear though? First, what else? And they get tired and wait. And you're thinking, now how am I supposed to be patient when the person telling me to wait is taking it up 14 notches and getting faster the longer they go? So we get into looking at this time in our lives when we are waiting. And I'm going to give you some close examples of just waiting on the Lord, how real this is right now. I'm going to give you a few examples. The person in the doctor's office waiting room expects the doctor to play a part in their healing. Waiting on God expects them to use any and all of His resources to bring healing into the right time in the right way. Another person doesn't have enough money in his bank account to pay rent, which is due in 2 days. He's applying for jobs left and right, but nothing has come through. He has asked a friend for a loan and expects this friend will probably help, but he ultimately expects that God will provide a job for him and will take care of his family because he knows God is in charge. We all are waiting for something to happen. People from waiting rooms of doctors' offices to applying for jobs and waiting on a phone call for an interview to all these things that come out of our control at the time that we need something the most. And so waiting nowadays is very different than the Lord's time in the wilderness of what He waited on the Lord to do. Our life is so chaotic and busy and crazy and everything else going on that we wait a lot of times on things that we don't even realize. Now I'm going to take you to a very familiar verse in Isaiah for just a moment, because here we get to another part of Isaiah and what he tells us. So, waiting on the Lord, believing in His timing, to put it simply, brings us to a few questions. And I'm going to use this verse tonight as an example of something to think about. If you look at the eagle, it rises to a great height. How high do you think it flies? That's a good answer. I like it. One of the highest flying birds of any species and breed. But it has no jet engine behind it. Ain't no power pack strapped to its wings when the eagle decides to fly. However, the body is designed to maximize the power of the air to soar in an unseen current with little to no problems. If you take this same very verse in Isaiah, talking about that eagle, you and I are the same as this eagle in a few ways. One being that we are an independent creature. Is the eagle not independent? We're an independent creature. And we have to rely on something that we cannot see. When the eagle jumps off that nest, the ledge, the tree branch, or whatever it's flying off of, can it see the wind? No. So it's relying on something that it cannot see. And it is independently creature of independence that it is able to know that there is something greater that's going to make it capable of lifting off the ground. Now, if you notice, it's not a weakness of the eagle that he is dependent on the power of the air. It's more of his dependence in his greatest strength to be able to hold those wings out and let something that he cannot see or it cannot see carry him. You think about how many times you're waiting on something in life, or you're waiting on the Lord to answer something, or you're waiting on the Lord to move in something, or maybe you're just flat out waiting for something to happen that's going to happen, and you don't know what the result's going to be. We go through this so simple. The Bible is not complicated in a lot of these things. Look at these verses. This is how simple the Bible is laid out for us, that we don't even look at a few things while we wait. So this first thing that we know in Colossians is that our job is to set our affection on things above. First word set means what? Give me another word. If I was going to replace the word set with something else, what would it be? All right, what else? Any other word you would put in there? Rely. Anything else? Remember, we're waiting and we're in a wilderness. We do not know what's ahead. Cast. So the Bible easily sets us in the right direction during a waiting period. How long did you all wait before Lois, from the time that you knew she needed a transplant to the time you had one? You remember how much time in between there? I'm picking your brain for just a moment. From the time they decided that she needed a heart to the time she got one. That they had a donor. Yeah. 3 days. So for 3 days you wait. But you had to wait. From July the 4th to the 7th. Right? You did not know that you did not know that there was a heart available on the 4th of July. You knew that only when they walked in on the 7th. So the 4th, 5th, and 6th until the 7th, technically the 4th day, but 3 days later, after the discussion of needing a transplant, did you know? What could you do to change it? Nothing. So what do? You wait. You wait. And totally out of control, we sit in our lives every day waiting on things. And I think sometimes we look like that skeleton sitting there when we see that all of the things that we look for are very simply minded. So I went back and found this just a day or two ago, and I pulled this so I could put it on here. Psalms 27. I'm going to go back to these verses for just a moment because this is really setting with where our waiting needs to be. And David said, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident." In waiting. Now, I'm going to show you in the next couple verses, piece by piece, as we study these. Verse 4. This is a good one. "One thing have I desired of the Lord, that I will seek after, or that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. That's when I got to the answer of waiting. And what are we supposed to do while we wait 3 days? I've got a patient that I deal with at the hospital. He's been on the transplant list, I think, 6 months, and still no donor 6 months later. There's all these people sitting in a doctor's office waiting. It's called the waiting room. And in these waiting rooms, you think about it, what's usually in there? A TV. What else? Magazines. Sometimes the Gideon Bible will be laying in there. What else is in that waiting room? People. Yeah. Toys for the kids. There's stuff in there going on while you wait. But none of that changes the outcome of what's going to happen. None of that even affects and alters the outcome of what's going to come later. It's just waiting. So my first question I came to in this, and I got to thinking about this, because we're in the wilderness. In our lives, every day, you are in an unknown territory with whatever the world, the devil, is going to throw at you, and it will come at any time. So the first question that came to me is this one. I'm going to put this up here, and you don't even have to answer it right now. I don't want anybody to answer it right now. You just think about this question of what is your spiritual desires? Not what your goals and ambitions in life to be. You know what I thought about this right here is the first thing people's going to say is, well, I'm saved and going to heaven. Okay. But that ain't what I asked. I asked you what your spiritual desire is. If I didn't know you're saved, that ain't answering my question while you wait on the Lord. We wait on the Lord many times in this window of space or window of time that we find ourselves, and we ask the question of what is our spiritual desire. So we go on in Psalms 27. I'll give you 2 more verses. In the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock, and now shall mine head be lifted up above mine enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto the Lord. We wait, and we look and ahead of us at so many things that could or could not be, may or may not come, may not even be possible. But we run, as Jennifer said a few minutes ago, that million possible ideas through our head of all the different possibilities. And all that time while we're waiting on something, we're missing something else. And I brought this picture up because this just happened about 2 months ago. When Rick was here, he can tell you. But 2 months ago in this building, we were here working on some lights. I went back and pulled this so I could have this. And 2 months ago, me and Rick, Tony and Chris was here. We was working on some lights. And through the door, this girl comes walking in. I don't remember, it was a Tuesday night, Thursday night, something during the week. But she just comes walking through the door and comes in and starts talking to us. She's troubled. And she was sitting in here, and I thought about this for just a moment. David, waiting on the Lord, starts talking about God's pavilion. What your spiritual desires are is where the place is that you're sitting while you wait on the Lord. Now think about this for a moment. What is God's pavilion? David talks about God's pavilion. What do you think that is? Huh? Let's take it down to, let's put it into perspective tonight to thinking about the church. Let's start there. And I use this picture for this very reason. What should you feel inside this part of the building right here?
Love.
Okay. What else? What'd you say? Spirit. Okay. What else? What should we feel? Okay. I just looked at this a lot, just like David resembles about being in the time of trouble shall he hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. And shall mine head be lifted up above mine enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto the Lord. The first things that came to my mind about a church, the church, even this church, and what David experienced during this time of waiting is when you're waiting, you need somewhere safe to go. Where else is there that the Lord's going to drive you to that's safe to go? You think about that for a moment. Where else is a safe place to go that the Lord would lead you to while you wait? Then you got to look at comfort. Now you think about that for a moment. While waiting on the Lord, one of the top places that you're going to find comfort is where? The church. Security. Some form of refuge, as you may call it. Everybody has to have a spiritual foundation. This is why that one of the reasons, and Robert says this sometimes in Sunday school, that some people says they can stay home and they read the Bible and they watch church on TV. Okay, how good of a spiritual foundation is that? They don't even participate at home. You're not taking any part in what's going on your TV. If you really think about that, a spiritual foundation you've got to have in order to have any type of spiritual desires. So I just went through the Bible, just some examples of while waiting, because we all wait on something at times on the Lord to answer us. And here's just some simple examples I put up for you. Those that are waiting for healing, the Bible directs us in those directions, because it even one of the names of God is our healer, as it is described. And I just got these examples up here to let you mark down as we go so you can see. Also, while waiting, we can find more examples in time of waiting, not just medically or healing or whatever the case may be. There's all these examples that the Bible is giving us and directing us while we're waiting on the Lord. Let me give you some others. All these biblical examples, and I just paraphrased out of them verses. That's not the exact verses. I was paraphrased and quoted where the reference points came from of while we're waiting on something in our life. And then we go on in Luke 6, just a few examples of something about waiting. In verse 20, he lifted up his eyes on his disciples and said, Blessed be ye poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are ye that hunger now, for ye shall be filled. And blessed are ye that weep now, for ye shall laugh. And blessed are ye when men shall hate you, and when they shall separate you from their company, and shall reproach you, and cast out your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake. Everything that we want to do, we're still having to learn to wait. And in contrast, this is an example in Luke 6, is how well that God turns your situation, your waiting period, into something for his glory. And look at this, James 1 and 4. Let patience do what? Perfect work. The very thing we're commanded to do the most is the very thing we don't want to do at all. One of the very things that you are commanded to do the most is something that you want to do the least, and that is patiently wait. And the danger is that even while we wait on the Lord, we do things that we should not do. It holds true in all the things we do, because you think about there's three things that we do, three W's that people do when we are waiting. Three W's that people do when they're waiting on the Lord. You know what that is? Can be. Any other W's? I'll give you the three I wrote down, but you can tell me if you've got any other W's that you think of. Wonder happens every time you wait on the Lord. Wavering can happen. We can start believing that He's not hearing us, or He's not going to answer us, or He's not going to do what we thought He was going to do. And then later, we begin to wither. That's the last one that happens with people when they are not patiently waiting. They start to wither. Who wrote it that says it, not let us be weary in well doing? Huh? Mm-hmm. So let us not be weary in well doing. And the last thing that came to my mind tonight, I'm going to give you the example. When we're talking about waiting, we don't really grasp waiting until we use this very example right here. You just calculate this up for a moment. I broke this all down from time so you can see this. How long do you think it would take you to read Genesis chapter 12 through Genesis chapter 21? How long do you think? Just to sit down and read from Genesis chapter 12 through Genesis chapter 21. How long would it take you? You can do it in a day? Okay. Maybe an hour or two, depending on how fast you read. You could do that. But this on the screen is how long of time went from Genesis chapter 12 to Genesis chapter 21. And this is how long between the time that Abraham was promised a son until he held him in his arms. This amount of time is the amount of time between the time that Abraham was promised a son until the time he held it in his arms. That's the wandering, the wavering, and the withering. Wait on the Lord. So the question for that is, what he done in between the time God promised something and the time God gave it to him was on him. That wavering problem, people want to tend to waver and wonder, and it may not even be what I would call a lack of faith as much as people just linger and wait. But this is how long Abraham went, and even in mentioned here we're told in Genesis, I wrote this down, chapter 15, chapter 17, and chapter 18, and between 12 and 21, in them three chapters, 3 times God appeared to Abraham to reaffirm his promise. Now remember, the promise was in Genesis chapter 12, but in chapter 15, 17, and 18, 3 more times God reaffirmed the promise that he and Sarah carried otherwise the past promise in a land waiting with open hands and an empty womb. And you think about this in Romans 4 and 16. This is one of the very things that is named of Abraham. The father of us all was a waiting man, and at his 70s turned to 80s, and then his 80s turned into the 90s. And guess what he did? He waited because God still had not delivered his promise. And he moved from Haran to Canaan, and from Canaan to Egypt, and back between these chapters. And guess what he did? He still waited. And as his body weakened and his wife grew gray-headed and feeble and old as what we would know the natural selection of age, what did he do? He still waited. Now, God could have brought Isaac sooner, as we all know, and he could have even given the promise later. He could have done either one. He could have shortened or lengthened that 25-year span. Instead, guess where he sent Abraham? For 25 years. Where did he send Abraham? Don't blow a vessel over thinking so hard. Don't make it that hard. Where are we at? Where have we been studying? For 25 years, the Lord put Abraham in the wilderness of waiting. Of waiting. For 25 years. And Was it a bad plan to wait 25 years? Did God give him what he promised him? Yep. And then later he turned around and said, I want him back. You give him back to me. And what happens in that story we talked about just a few weeks ago? He goes up and prepares the altar. He puts him on it. And just before he lays the knife to him, God says, wait, hold it right there. This is what I promised you. Now think about that. 25 years. How many people in a church comes in and says, I've prayed for so-and-so to get saved for 40 years? They waited. They waited. What your spiritual desires are in the wilderness, just as Abraham, the Lord, all these, what your spiritual desires are is what power you have within you. You think about that. Your faith drives power. And what power that's within you is what really shows your spiritual desires. Have you ever seen and heard people mention a prayer request and then after a little bit of time, nothing moves or happens on it? And what happens to that prayer request? It goes away. You don't hear it, do you? It goes away. That's honest. That's really what happens. They're withered, wandered, or wavered. Something happened in that case in that time of waiting. But there's other examples, and I know others in here right now tonight can tell you of times that they remember when they've been in a church service and somebody has says, I've waited all my life for that. Whatever age they are, I've heard people say in church, I've waited all my life to see this, especially if it's a child. Callie was how old when she got saved? And you started praying for that when she was born? 9 years of waiting. You see how easy it could be to just put that to the back burner and just say, I got other stuff to deal with right now. I'm not going to push that very much. Or I've got something else going on and I'm not going to press that very much. But the problem is we don't have patience. So we don't do good at waiting. Same as the elevator button. We think that pressing it is going to make it come down faster and open the door. Ain't it? It's it. Now, I hate to say this way, but I kind of look at it a little different with the Lord. Some people think the harder you pray and the faster you go, the quicker He's going to do something. There's no, I don't read that. You read that? No, no. But we've got that patience problem. I've heard it said in church here that the more people that pray, the more He'll hear us. Tell me the logic behind that. I'm still waiting because this is God's plan. We're waiting, patiently waiting. Let patience have her perfect work because it's going to teach you wisdom and knowledge, one of the two things. But how many times have you waited for something and we look back and don't realize that all that time we was waiting on the Lord to do this or do that or whatever we asked Him for or prayed for, and all that time, what did we do? That's what I'm really focusing on tonight. If I put you over here in the wilderness in the national park for 40 days and set you out, and there's no way out. You're there for 40 days on your own. It's like that crazy show, Naked and Afraid. We're going to set you out there for 40 days in the wilderness, no way out. What are we going to do? Just sit there? Because that's how we're living right now. People have just sat out. And if they see it happen, it happens. But if it don't, they're not looking for it. That's really what people have done. They've just sat out. They're not spiritually desiring to see something from the Lord like we think they are. They're praying for things to happen. 3 days seemed like how long?
A long time.
A very long time. It sure didn't move fast, did it?
Look back at it, quick.
Oh, it's gone. It's been how many years? That's what I'm saying. But how long do we have to wait on some things from the Lord? I can't answer that. I can't tell you how long it's going to be. But how much we wait on Him. In that time of waiting, what are we doing? That's the big one. Noah knew that water was going to cover every bit inch of this earth. There wasn't a spike of a tree sticking out of the water by the time he flooded it. But how long from the time God told him it was going to happen to the time it happened? How long did it go? Over 200. We know. He waited. He kept working, but he waited. All these promises God gives us, and we have to learn to wait. If it was up to us, we would be like what? I need it now. Now. Don't wait. Let's do it now. Let's not put that off. Let's do it now. And I get how we're made and our minds work and our humanistic ways, because that's the world that's teaching us that. You now can watch a movie off of your TV streaming like that. Used to, you had to go over to Blockbuster in the old mall at Blockbuster. So you didn't rent a movie unless you had time to go get it, and you had to do what after you watched it? By the next day. You had to. Well, now technology's advanced so far that there's no wait. You don't have to go to the theater to watch movies. You don't have to go to ball games to watch them. Roger sits right there and watches games in his recliner. It's within seconds of it happening on the field. We are taught that we don't have to wait. That's all day long. We're being taught you don't have to wait. If you don't want to stand in line, you pay your bill online. To avoid the long line at the Pava Electric office, just go on their website and pay your bill. Auto pay, and you never even have to worry about it. Don't worry about waiting, because we're being taught that waiting is nothing necessary. There's no necessity in waiting. But that's why we don't have no patience, and that's why we can't wait on anything. We've got that.
And then you're brought back to reality when you go to the doctor's office.
Every bit of it. Yeah. You know what's sad about that? And that's the honest truth. But you know, it's the same thing at the ER. I deal with that all the time. They'll come in and they'll check in for something, and one of the girls I work with, and when they register, she'll say, "Well, have a seat in the lobby," and they'll call you as soon as they're ready. And they'll look at us and they'll say, "Well, why do I have to wait?" Well, because I've got 20 back here right now that I'm trying to deal with. There's one doctor dealing with however many patients. They don't see that. There's no reason that we should have to wait on anything. We should have it all right now. And so now, you know what, we've got a sign up there that says to avoid the wait, you can either go up to the other clinic or you can get online and do a telehealth visit. So another diversion. Life is throwing us so many things now that if you don't want to wait, you've got another option. So what do we think? Are we shocked when we see the people, the Christians today, get so impatient that they start trying to fix it themselves? Because that's what we know. That's what we've been taught all around us. If you don't like what Channel 6 News gives you, you got other options. By the time you hit that remote, it's already gone. Everything your life lives around you does not teach patience or waiting. Neither. And it makes it worse, and we get worse. And as time goes, we come to church, and now we're not very acceptable of waiting on the Lord, because I need it now. I don't have time to wait. I need it now. And Roger can tell you, we had an experience Sunday. Well, Rick was with us too. We had an experience Sunday. How long was we there before we ate? A couple hours before we got to eat any food at a restaurant. What would you do? Now with us, we were just sitting there talking, having a good time. But most people would have done what? Walked out. But how long would it took us to cook that food at the house? You think about it. How long would it take you to cook it at the house from scratch? It'd take you a while, at least half of that, if not more. But we're not going to wait. We'll get up, just like the elevator button, we'll get up and we'll try another restaurant until we find one that we can get in and eat right now. Because we've been taught that we don't wait. We don't wait. You burn all that extra time. Yeah, but we don't have patience. We really don't have patience. And in the world of medicine, I use it as a big example, but it's very different. Ginger can tell you, we're required to take the worst first. I don't have a choice. I'm not allowed to do any bypassing. I have to take the worst one first because they're going to die. If I don't do something for them, they're going to die. But other people don't think they should deserve to have to wait. They feel like their problem is just as important as the one back here dying right now. And we had that happen in the last 2 weeks. I had a man that collapsed on me in the lobby. We started CPR on him at the front registration desk until I got people down there to help me. And you know, the woman behind him who was coughing and sneezing, she said, "Will you get him out of the way so I can check in and be seen?" I'm just sitting there for a minute because I knew it was coming. And the doctor that works with me from New York looked at her and he said, "Well, who's going to see you?" Just like that. And she said, "The doctor." He said, You'll have to find one other than me because I'm not. He said, I will not put up with that. And he refused because she was no life threatening emergency. He refused to see her. She lost her mind. PD had to come take her out of the building because we're doing CPR on somebody that coded at the front registration desk. But she told me, she said, I will not wait. You need to move him out of the way. That is how far we've got, that we're not acceptable or willing to wait on anything. We have no patience. It's not there. Anybody else got anything to add tonight?
Obviously, she thought she had some authority.
Yeah.
What's the line that's kind of broad?
We have a scale of symptoms and complaint. If you come in having severe chest pain, which is suggestive of a possible heart attack, I have to do an EKG within 15 minutes and read it and make sure you're not having a true heart attack right now. Now, if you're not, I can put you in the lobby, but I have 15 minutes from the time you walk in that door to have done a full triage, assessed you, and do an EKG.
You come in with your left arm hurting, numb or whatever.
We got
If you come in on the ambulance, you bypass the whole line.
we've got a 15-minute window from the time you get in the door to have that done, or we're faulted for it. They actually won't pay us. Medicare has now faulted the hospitals to where if you don't meet that mark, they cut out what they pay you. That's how they're forcing it to get done. But the problem is you've got one in the lobby that has been there for 4 hours and watched 5 other people get taken back for chest pain. Some of those legitimately are real, and some aren't. But now they're not waiting. I'm not waiting no more. You know, that fit of I have no pain. Ginger and tea, it's real in healthcare. It's a lot worse than fast food if I've ever seen. That I've even had them fight in the lobby before about who was going back next. When I called a name, buddy, they whooped each other all over that lobby, and I thought, well, neither one of you need to come back here right now. You two's fine. But people won't wait. There is no waiting.
Right now.
Working. On Mondays, it's me and a doctor until a certain time, and then there's another nurse comes in. So there's 3 of us. We got 10 beds. So I can deal with 10 problems at one time with 3 people working on it. That's how the staffing matrix goes. The floor upstairs, Ginger, going to take, 6, 8 patients apiece? 10 patients apiece. Well, you can imagine 10 problems at once, and they're all hollering and ringing the bell.
Yeah.
So if you come in with a nail in your foot, you just have to wait.
You wait. Unless you're bleeding out, you're going to wait. Yeah. You know, yeah. But we won't, yeah. We won't wait. Think about that. We won't wait. But all these other people through all the Bible waited. Abraham waited 25 years before he got to see anything. How much we go through, and you think about it, how much do you expect God to do something in His time and guidance? Whether it's 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years, whatever it is. And then it's a journey. Now you think about this, from the time that you ask the Lord or wait on the Lord for anything to the time you get an answer or the Lord moves or whatever it is, you are on a journey. It may even be called a test. We could use the word test in this example because this is a journey of seeing just how much you trust God's plans better than your own. Now, Roger could have said, if Lois would agree to it, we're going to go somewhere else. Went to Vandy, top heart hospital in this side of the U.S., but he could have said, well, I know other hospitals that does heart transplants. I'm going to call them. If one of them can get me quicker, I'm going to load her up and take her. I see that all the time. Because we're not going to wait. We're not going to wait patiently. And when we look all along later, when things start coming around and we kind of get our senses about what we've waited on with the Lord, we start learning that God was behind the scenes the whole time, working it the whole time. People think that's foolish. That's not foolish. I see that all the time. And, you got to believe in His timing. That's one big one because it's perfect. And then that He will fulfill His promises. Your spiritual desires is that He will fulfill His promises. With or without you, the plan is going to be fulfilled.
That's where your faith comes in.
All day long. That's where your power is at. The stronger the faith, the better you got, the more power you get. He actually said in the Bible, what did he say in the New Testament about you receiving the power? What do you say about that? Any examples of receiving power in the New Testament? You have power to tread over serpents and scorpions. There is another one that talks about, what is the one about in the four Gospels about you'll receive the power of the Holy Ghost? Yeah, but it talks about the power, huh? All these examples. Any others you can think of? They had to wait on it.
Well, he told, commissioned his officers to know how power.
Demons? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there was a waiting period. Short, long, whenever, there was a waiting period. And you know, it's funny to me how shocked we are sometimes when we don't get an answer right like that. People get pretty buffed up sometimes. I've seen it, I've heard it, I've watched it. People can really lock up sometimes because God's not hearing me. God's not answering me. God's not moving. Well, He is, but what are you doing while you're waiting? Some people just sit on it. It's like a log. They just sit there and die. People spiritually die because they wander, they waver, or they wither while they wait upon the Lord. And that verse, that's why I put it on your page, because if you went back to the very example of the beginning of it, and I'll pull mine back right quick, the very beginning of that went to, be of good courage, and He shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Who wrote that in Psalms? Yeah, but what was it? What was David? Huh? What was David's position? Title? King David. One that made it to the top is telling you that the best advice he can give you is to wait. The best advice he can give you is to wait. And everything that we do. In the wilderness, our lives, we don't want to do it. We're not patient. We have so much trouble waiting. But in the wilderness and everything we go through in our lives, you just think about how many times while we're waiting on God's perfect timing that we truly, really want, we sit. We don't do nothing. And look at all that time lost in between. Roger can tell you, he's told it before, of his experiences in the waiting room. Well, that was during the transplant, wasn't it? He was praying with people. There was a woman he prayed with. All these other things while he waited. There was some woman there. Her husband was across the hall, wasn't
Yeah,
he? And
they
that,
moved him
yeah.
from the room down to the lower
Uh-huh.
I talked to her.
Yeah.
You know, wait.
But there was something to do while you wait. There's something for us to be doing while we're waiting on the promises of God. And a lot of people have got the only vision is that He's going to come back and get me and take me to heaven. But while we wait for Him to come back and get us, and we are waiting, what are we doing? I know. We're in the wilderness, but we're waiting. Anybody else got anything to add to it? Any other thoughts?
Seems like waiting could be a good thing at some point. For instance, if I come over to or you got the medicine, and I'm waiting in the waiting room, if I hurry up and get back there, one's gonna give me a shot. I'm gonna wait up in the waiting room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't wanna get back there, I don't know where I at.
Well, I'll give you a good.
Just like the Lord, when He was in the wilderness, He could see what He had to do
Mm-hmm.
when He got to the cross.
Mhm.
Why would He want to rush it?
Yeah. Don't push it any faster than it's coming.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
That's the
Waiting
human.
could be a good thing.
Absolutely. For what could be coming. Waiting could be real good for what could be coming.
It's like that time you took us on that journey and we come to a big cliff and we didn't have no rope.
And you didn't pack nothing with you to go off. Yeah. God prepares us for what's coming while we wait. But we don't realize that because all we're taught in life now. If you go to the dealership and they say, well, we can't work on that car for 4 months. Rick went through that with the Lincoln. He had to wait. And they still never fixed it, did they? No. But look how little impatient we get. And the longer it goes, the worse we get. And we should be really opposite of that. The longer it goes, the more we should be confident Lord's got it. He's done going to take care of it. He's done promised it. And the closer we get to that time of the end of that waiting, we should be farther ahead than we were when it began, no matter what time frame that is. But we find a lot of times, I'm telling you, people are sitting. We got a lot of sitting going on, and they're not doing anything. They're waiting, but they're not patient because they wither, they wonder, or they waver. Anything else tonight? Well, y'all got quiet. Anything else? Any prayer requests?